Welcome to Power Up Talk Show, a talk show where we bring together community leaders, inspirational people that are making a difference right here in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm Sandy Spady, I'm your host, and today, before I introduce my just outstanding, sparkly, beautiful guest, we're going to have Dion Bass in the house with some fun, crafty cocktails, the Songbird cocktails.
All right, so today we're going to be doing a cocktail that may or may not have made a few people famous. It's called the Naked and Famous. It is actually a play on a cocktail called The Last Word, which is originally made with gin. It's it's this captivating mashup of herbalness. In the case of gin, it would be some form of juniper, a little bit of citrus, and then a little bit of cherry. Now with this one, we're going to be using a smokier mezcal and some strawberry puree to kind of liven it up and make it a little bit different. So we're going to start off with 3/4 ounces of strawberry puree. Add that to our blend. Some lemon juice, always fresh squeeze. So I squeeze before I come on set. And then we're going to be using our Luxardo Maraschino cherry liqueur. So this is going to be more of an under-ripened cherry liqueur. It's not going to be quite as sweet and cloyant as, a dark cherry. This is going to be more of a dry and herbaceous cherry liqueur. Our next ingredient, maybe one of my favorite liqueurs of all time, it's made by monks, is going to be our yellow chartreuse. Now they do make a green version of this that's flammable. That's how high a proof it is. We're going to be using 1 ounce of that. Now keep in mind, this is a recipe for 2 cocktails, not 1. All right, and our last ingredient is going to be our rock star of the show. It's going to be our Ilegal Mezcal. Beautiful, beautiful spirit. Again, it's kind of like a smoky agave spirit. And we're going to be doing 2 ounces of this guy. The beauty of this cocktail is, I love The Last Word, but I wanted something different over the years to give it just a little bit more character. All right, and all we have left to do is pour this guy in a glass. Now, the reason it's called the Naked and Famous is because if you drink too many of them, well, the name speaks for itself.
Well, you don't have to worry about that at the Power Up. We are PG-13.
Beautiful cocktail, beautiful spirits. Thank you, Sandy. I love being on your show.
Thank you, Dion. And remember, audience, Dion's for hire. He is a craftsman's cocktail. For events, for nonprofits, for any of those special you want to impress your neighbors events, make sure you look up for Dion. Thanks, Dion. All right, Angie. Cheers. Let's just test this out.
Great.
It's very different.
Yeah,
I could see why they say you might take off your clothes on this one. Whoa. I kind of feel like
smell of the mezcal in there.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got a really powerhouse woman in the house. Angie Hauptman. I've known since I moved to Omaha, 5 years. She was one of my female friends that I could turn to and we just could talk about life and business. She is an entrepreneur. Her and her daughter have built this empire with branding. I just have to let her just share this because she's taken a turn for even greater things. So Angie, welcome.
Thank you.
To Power Up Talk Show.
What a privilege to be here.
Oh, I love it. Her pink. I love it.
Me too.
Might have something to do with something, I think.
Might.
Okay.
It ties in and it doesn't have to do with Barbie.
Well, I do have to share that she is a wife, a mother, and grandma, soon to be 2, right?
Yes.
Coming.
Yes.
An entrepreneur, a coach, a public speaker. Angie, I have to ask this. It's been killing me not to ask her, and she sent this in. What is the meaning of #chicken salad? And then we're coming back for more greatness, but I have to ask this.
I do have a chicken salad kind of a speech.
Okay.
And it goes back to my dad. So my parents still live on a little acreage up by Oakland, Nebraska, and my dad just turned 94. And he's kind of always been this beautiful inspiration in all of our lives, kids, grandkids. He's just a guy that's got this happy spirit. I often say he's a guy that's lived a really wealthy life without a lot of money. He just knows how to live his life very richly. And when I was going through my divorce and I was in this kind of challenging, changing time of my life, my divorce was just final, and I was up at my parents' house. And my mom's always been a really incredible cook, baker, the perfect farm wife that made all the wonderful foods. But my dad was always a real simpleton when it came to meat and potatoes.
Yep.
Just meat and potatoes. And so he would never really try anything. And so we go up there, and my sister said, "Hey, Ange, you need to ask Dad about Mom's chicken salad." And I go, "Okay." And I go, "So, Dad, what I'm supposed to ask you about Mom's chicken salad?" He goes, "Oh, yeah." And I go, "Well, what about it?" He goes, "Well, I tried it." I go, "You tried it? After all these years, you finally tried Mom's chicken?" He goes, I did. And I go, "Well, what'd you think?" He goes, "Well, it was damn good. I've just been eating the hell out of it." And I was like, "Well, good for you." And he goes, "Well, I'll tell you what, Pooh." And he always called me Angie Pooh. He goes, "Well, I'll tell you what, Pooh, it's never too late to try something new. And then when you discover how good it is, you got to just eat the hell out of it." And I was like, wow. And it kind of became this thing that I could have just, imprinted on my soul. It was like this message about something that he had just tried to eat, but was reminding me that it didn't matter, that it was my time to start over, whether it was business, whether it was life, whether it was, transitioning from one thing to another. But it just became kind of my hashtag was chicken salad, because it really speaks to anything. It's not too late to try something new in your life, because what if it's that great? And you do want to eat the hell out of it. And so I kind of even put it on a journal and everything like that. And it just kind of stayed with me, because it really helped me through all these moments where you're thinking it's never too late to even learn something new. So that's the chicken salad.
That's beautiful. I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's life. It's a life lesson.
It is. It is. Even when you're,
94.
Dad's
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
That's awesome. As far as because I think it kind of made me think of the next question about your impromptu influence, your comedian,
I am.
and the influencer in that. Tell us how that started, besides she's just a lot of fun.
Well, I think you and I both know, and why we had a great connection is humor is at the core of kind of everything to survive, right? But I grew up just loving comedy, and when I was a young girl, I wanted to be on Saturday Night Live. Like, I started out being so influenced by Carol Burnett and Lucille Ball and, all of these things. Yeah, and they were so real to me, and I was so enamored by that. And I loved the idea of being on stage. I wanted to be in the school plays, and I, wanted to do those things. And I found such joy in it. But I guess the other part of it is we're kind of an eclectic family, right? We did a lot of different things. We were in 4-H, and you did your homework, and you did athletics, and you did all of these things. And so you kind of picked eventually what your lane was. But I loved that, and I found that humor was my way of just kind of dealing with things all the time. It came very easy for me, having a sense of humor in any conversations that I have. I mean, typically, like even networking, you'll probably find me at the end of the day standing along the wall talking to somebody who's got a really funny sense of humor, because it's my nature, and I love that. So it's a big part of it. And I think in improv, I think there's a lot that you can lean into from a business standpoint, growing relationships with people, putting people in situations where they have to do some kind of improvisational conversations, making them kind of come out of a place that they don't even know. They find joy in that and laughter, and I love all of those things.
I have a public speaking course, and I love impromptu. Mm-hmm. The first time I had it, the one beautiful young gal stood up, and it was an impromptu question, and she froze. And I said, "And that's why you're here today." It's so important to be yourself and to let go and not worry about it. But it's a real thing, public fear of public speaking and not saying the wrong thing. But you got to laugh at it.
You do.
Yeah, you got to laugh at yourself and laugh at you're not going to be perfect.
Yeah. I think it comes from a lot of insecurities about thinking you're supposed to present yourself in a certain way. But even in small conversations or tight, knit groups of people, you can still do that. It kind of helps even work through maybe difficult conversations or conversations that are tough to have and you don't want to. It's just kind of asking more questions, letting people lean into something that's a little more unexpected and enjoyable instead of coming right to the core of something that's hard to talk about. And I think there's a lot of joy in that too, and it makes it a little easier to have the conversation that maybe you don't want to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. You may not know this. Some of you I know that know Angie knows this. But how many years were you a volleyball coach?
Well, I quit coaching probably just 3 or 4 years ago, about 4 years ago, I suppose.
So how many years total?
I don't know.
Okay, we're not talking about years right now. We're not talking about years.
30
but
some.
She is an amazing volleyball coach that many people would not know. Share that with the audience.
Well, I grew up, again, like I said, with sports, and I loved sports. I got a degree in physical education with my coaching endorsement, and I grew up loving all sports, but volleyball was the sport that ended up kind of falling into, I guess, my pocket when I was deciding what I wanted to do. I coached some basketball and volleyball, and I helped with softball and all of that, but I'd done some assistant coaching at our high school, and then in 1995, in the fall of 1995, I had been called by our high school in August to see if I would come be their head volleyball coach, which you only have like a week or so to prepare. Wow. And I turned down some head jobs already because I felt like I'm not ready. I want to coach under somebody else. I want to learn. I don't know what I'm doing. And so, it's kind of like assembling the plane, just jump off the cliff and figure it out. And so I leaned into a lot of people that I knew in the coaching world, and I went on, a lot of it was about believing in it. I was like, okay, well, if you have the foundation, you work hard enough at this and develop a youth program, you'll be able to do this. You just got to believe that you can do it. And so that's kind of where the journey began. And then I eventually had youth programs that I worked with and all this kind of stuff. Had to kind of overcome a lot of barriers along the way of just people not ready for that kind of thing in small town, small community. And it's something that I will talk about at the Women with Voices. That story will get a little deeper there. But, and it just became a passion of mine. So aside from my work that I was doing and raising my kids, the volleyball was my outlet. It certainly wasn't anything that was making me money. Yeah. It was bringing me joy from doing it and helping build young women and get them strong, get them believing. And I knew that if I could help them in this area, in this lane of their life, my hope was that it would trickle into other areas of their life, that I could help them build that confidence and learn disciplines and all that kind of stuff. And so it just became a big part of what I did, and I've loved it. I feel like even though I'm not coaching volleyball, that I'm still coaching humans.
Absolutely.
Because it just continues to carry on. So, yeah.
Well, I was a coach too, cheerleaders, but we don't get paid, but it's the passion that we get from seeing them grow, right? And finding their lane and that confidence builder.
Yeah. And it's fun to see a player now that you maybe haven't seen in a while, and they come up to you and sometimes they tell you a story that you didn't even remember or an impact that you made, and you're like, I didn't even know if you liked me, So it's awesome. Yeah.
Tell the audience some lessons that you've learned of being just a volleyball coach for all those years and a mentor.
Yeah, I love that question. Thanks for asking me that, because I think it's just an ongoing process. But this didn't come with just all these medals and trophies and top of the line, right? Because even when you get great things happening, there's something else that you want to keep climbing over. So in 2003, we had just finished a 25-3 season. We were state runner-up, and I had a player on my team who went on to become an Olympian, Jordan Larson, and had this incredible team, these incredible young girls that we worked so hard at. And about a week after we accomplished the season, I was fired. And it was a huge blow, like, to my psyche. It was just huge. Like, I just didn't understand. Yes. I was just so confused of what had happened. There was no moral things. There was nothing else. It really was about playing time. It was about some unhappy parents and them having power.
Yes.
And so when you go through those moments and those experiences, and then you go through this kind of doubt that you have about yourself, like, what did I do? What should I have done differently? And I had a really good friend who was a colleague of mine who coached at Wisner Pilger. Her name's Jean Groth, and she's passed away, but she was just one of the most important people in my life and mentors for me. And I remember calling her and saying, I don't understand how this happened to me. And she gave me a really deep story that I carried with me that helped me that day, that was really about my faith. And that's what I really had to rely on, because that was the reminder that I needed of what my purpose was. And I realized that I'd had enough moments that I looked back that I was supposed to be somewhere else. And so I realized my work there was done. It was time for me to do more and to help even more people and more girls and more kids, and it was time to move on. And so we then moved to Elkhorn, and then the journey continued and kept growing and getting bigger, and it's been wonderful. But yeah, I mean, the lessons are there every single day, every single moment.
Yes.
If you choose to see them.
If you choose to see them. Because one door closes,
Yeah.
but God has another one open for
Yeah.
you. And if you just knew that, at that moment, it stinks and you're like, it hurts, transition's hard, change sucks.
Yeah.
But there's a purpose.
Yes, for sure.
And we find it. And she's still coaching.
Yeah.
Tell us now, coaching the community of Omaha, business owners, nonprofits. Share with the audience your next step of coaching.
Yes. Well, I think a lot of it comes from just, I have a degree in education. I've always loved that. I didn't use my teaching degree as a teacher, but maybe 1 year. And I realized, though, that I'm a good listener, and I love being able to help people find what the nugget is that's really in there. What is it that's maybe bothering them, or what they're aching for, or something they want to drive for, and helping pull that out of them. And so that, combined with the business that I have with my daughter Cola, which is Milo Brand Studio, is we realized that there was education that needs to happen in that too, because we work with people who are in marketing, right? So if a business has a marketing team, we'll work with their marketing team. But my industry, which is promotional products, has long had this kind of history of tchotchkes and stuff, and it's just stuff you get and whatever, and there's not enough education for people who are hired in marketing at large companies of how do you really want to buy? Are you buying with a responsible mindset? Does this really reflect who your brand is and your story is and the mission that your company is on? Because I think sometimes they get left behind and they're supposed to figure it out on their own. So I feel like there's a lot of education that needs to happen. And we find every time we're in a meeting that we could turn into a coach. We're really coaching them through what that marketing looks like, because we ask them lots of questions. And that's really where you get to the core of anything, is by asking questions or putting people in situations where they have to answer the question for themselves. And I think that's when the learning really happens, and the aha moments start happening for people, or you work through that difficult thing, is because you've asked the questions that just make them curious and make them think, and you stay in those moments. And so I think that's where the coaching has come from. I do have some friends that call me their unlicensed therapist. You know who you are. I think mainly, though, just because it's not work for me. I enjoy people's stories, and I enjoy being able to work through them and maybe have an eye to see that there's something sitting in there that they're not talking about, that they want it to come out, or they want to discover something, or they want a new job, or whatever it is. And it's all possible, but it does take a lot of helping them discover it on their own, because a lot of times we sit back and we think we're not capable, we're not worthy, we can't do it. And that voice that isn't the strong voice, but the weak voice, takes over too often. And so it's really about helping people find that strong voice. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is why she is a speaker at the Live Your Why Summit that's coming up the 20th of January, because you're going to fall in love with her wisdom and her experience and her passion for life. What made you say yes to that? I mean, I just thought of you, right?
Yes, to the speaking engagement?
Yes.
It's funny, I always thought that I would go on the road and I would open for somebody, or I would be the speaker, or I would be kind of this slightly funny, dirty comedian. No, not I don't mean that. But just to give people some joy and some inspiration and some reality. I feel like I'm a relatable person, and I feel like in our world we need more of that, because sometimes you think, isn't everybody already doing that? Or does anybody really want to hear me? And I just realized that I enjoy it, and it's not something that I get nervous or worked up about. It's just something that I enjoy. It's storytelling at its finest. It's helping people relate to something, and it's giving them something they'll take back. And I find anytime I go and listen to speakers, even if there's a speaker that you're like, and people are like, I don't know, they weren't so great or whatever, I find a nugget in everything.
Yes.
There's always something, there's always some diamond in there that you can take from it. And I think that's just from being a natural learner. And so I really want to think, very strongly about that when I'm presenting. What is it that I'm giving that's going to be something that somebody's going to resonate with? You're not going to touch everybody, but you can touch a few. You're doing something good.
And what's great that you realize that some speakers don't, it's not about you, right?
Correct.
It's always about the audience.
Correct.
And the audience is going to be in for a treat because you are a great speaker. I've heard you speak, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
And
Me
thank you
too.
for being a sponsor of our swag
Absolutely.
bag.
Absolutely.
Let's talk more about Milo.
Okay, let's do it.
There's a reason why we have pink t-shirts this year for our theme color, pink. Tell us what happened with the rebranding.
Yeah, well, if anybody knows us, we were Soul and Swag,
Yep.
and we started in June of 2017. I often describe it like my daughter and I got in a car and stole it. We just took off. We had the background that we needed. We had the business acumen. We'd been in this business for a long time. I'd been in a similar business in my previous life, and so we knew kind of everything we didn't want to do, and we just decided we can do this. We're gonna take off, and so we started the company, and things went well, and even going through the COVID year and all of that kind of stuff in a growing young business was interesting and challenging. It was also been interesting and challenging being a women-owned business, which I really didn't realize that there's a difference, and I don't even know if I can describe it eloquently of what the difference is, but I've seen it and I've felt it. So we're really thinking about how can we change this narrative, and how are we going to work through this, and how are we going to get people to trust us? And in some of the things of education and learning, I was like, what are we doing to send our messaging out? And what are people seeing us as? My industry, a lot of times it looks like you're just getting tchotchkes and trinkets and all of this stuff. And your brand means more than that. And if that's all your brand means, then we're probably not going to be the right fit to be a partner with you in business. But we were just really felt like, was our brand, Soul and Swag, even though it was doing well and people loved it, was it sending the right message? Because the word swag is an acronym for stuff we all get. Mm-hmm. And we felt like our work wasn't being reflected to that name. We felt like we were doing more, because we'll do things like events for people. And we come in and we'll be like, we'll set up the whole event. We'll do all of it. We'll do gifting experiences. We do online stores. We had so many different elements that we were bringing to the table. And we really have an ability to help people plan how you're going to distribute this from the start to finish. So the storytelling of just the product, even if it was a piece of drinkware, how are you handing it out? What's the experience you want people to have? The whole story mattered. And so we wanted our story to matter a little bit more too, and we wanted to stand out a little bit more as a woman-owned company. So we decided it was time for a change. So we did a lot of exploring and experiencing of names and trying to come up with what it was, and do we only want 4 letters? What's the story? And there's so many names, and they're all taken. And it finally hit me one day, and I said to Cola, at the end of the day, what's the most important compliment we could get from a client? And it's when they look at us and they go, oh my gosh, we got those shirts from you and everybody loved them. Or we ordered socks from you, everybody loved them. And it's like, love is something our world needs more of.
Yes.
We have all this darkness and stuff going on. And it's such a compliment when somebody says that to us. Everybody loved what we got. And I said, so what about merch you love? And the acronym for it would be Milo. Yeah. And that would be the name of the company. And we've always called our office a studio. Yeah. And we put the word brand in there to give association. And so that's kind of where it was all born. And then when we were choosing the color palette, I felt like it was important, again, before Barbie came out. I did not know
Yeah,
Barbie
it was way
was coming
before
out.
Barbie. Like, she followed her.
You're welcome, Barbie.
Yes.
But anyway, so yeah, we knew we wanted to go bold with the pink, and then we have some navy and dark greens and other colors, but we felt that palette was strong and stood out, and it was time for everything. I feel like this is a big time in our lives right now, and in Nebraska, everything that happened with the volleyball scene, with the fans, and just I feel a lot of movement happening, and we wanted to make sure that we were advocating for other women and their businesses, what they were doing, and we were standing tall and proud in what we were doing. And so far it's been really well received, and people are starting to ask more questions like, what is it you do? Did you change? And we did add more services and that kind of thing, but it just gave us another elevation, and we feel really good about it.
I'm very excited because it's our theme color for our summit.
Yes.
And they did a marvelous job on our t-shirt. So when it's on social media, thank Angie.
Yes.
Angie, we have about 30 seconds left for you. Anything, how can we reach you, get a hold of you?
Well, you can go to merchyouLove.com, and you can find our whole team there. My sister also works for us, my niece. And, you know, I think the most important thing is that you lean into each other, and you find love, and you find strength. And if you want to find me, I think you'll find me through you, because you're the amazing one who's putting this all together. So anybody that's on your show, they should just find Sandy Spady, and then the world will be your oyster.
I love her. I love her. I love her.
I love you too.
Remember, it all starts with an ideal, right? Too. Mm-hmm. An ideal to make a change and a purpose, and take your strengths and your love of life and just go make a difference.
That's right.
It's been a great episode. I just love Omaha. I love that we're a community that supports each other. And remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just got to be you. Have a great evening.